Hello, boys and girls, and welcome back to another episode of Deep and Effective Big Book Study. I'm your host, a recovered alcoholic. So glad you could join me today, my friends. And this is going to be episode 11, which is we're going to be starting chapter 3, more about alcoholism, one of my favorite words to talk about and one of the most overlooked words in the entire program of Alcoholics Anonymous. As always, we like to invite God into this thing, so we'll open up with a set-aside prayer and put it on the screen here, guys. You can read along with me if you like. If not, I'll do it all myself. So let's take a quick moment and invite God into this. God, please help me set aside everything I think I know about myself, my disease, the 12 steps, and especially you, so I may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Please help me to see the truth. Okay, we got that out of the way. Guys, I'm going to drop in my email address right here. It's recoveredalcoholic1939@gmail.com. Any questions, comments, concerns you might have, feel free to shoot me a message. Also, if you're looking for sponsorship, men and women, I talk about this all the time. Guys, I can take you to this work, help you get a spiritual experience. And ladies, I can get you hooked up with some women in the program that are very strong in the solution. I also attend 2 regular meetings a week. One is an all-men step study on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Central. Here's a Zoom code and password. And also on Sundays at 6 p.m. Central, I attend a men and women's step study. And here is the 6 p.m. Central as well. And here is the Zoom code and password. And please, if you get an opportunity to please like and subscribe, it will help out the channel immensely. Okay, guys, so this is going to be chapter 3, page 30. All right, and we're going to split, like I said, we're going to split this chapter into 2 parts. And I think a good stopping part is at the bottom of, I believe it's 37, when we're just about to get into the jaywalker story. So we're going to get to talk about the man of 30, and we're going to talk about Jim. And, most of this is going to get read verbatim and broken down and talked about, because this is just so much vital information in this chapter. I've talked about this before, but you got to remember that the first 51 pages of the big book are dedicated to the first step and helping the reader, the individual, qualify themselves to even be here. And the reason they take so much time and effort and so much detail into going about talking about this first step is because it's so vitally important. Without this true first step experience, I'm not going to be able to muster the willingness, the honesty, and the open mind that's required to do steps 2 through 12. It's just not going to happen. So I've sat in 1,000 meetings in my career in recovery and heard people talk about or say some version of how the big book doesn't offer instructions for all the steps. And I got to tell you, that's absolute nonsense. Each step comes with clear-cut, precise, exact directions on what to do. And we're going to read the first step instructions here on page 30. So here we go, guys. Read along with me. Chapter 3, more about alcoholism. Not more about addiction, not more about chemical dependency, not more about substance abuse, not more about disorders or personalities, problems, and the list goes on and on and on. And again, I'm not making light of anybody's struggles in life, but we have to remember that this is for the disease of alcoholism. This is who this book was written for. So I will read. Most of us have been unwilling to admit we were real alcoholics. Right? I've been talking about this over and over and over. The real alcoholic. No person likes to think he is bodily and mentally different from his fellows. Therefore, it's not surprising that our drinking careers have been characterized by countless vain attempts to prove we could drink like other people. Do you have any experience of that in your life? Do you have any experience with countless vain attempts to try to prove you can drink like other people? I do. That's a question we need to be asking ourselves and the newcomer. The idea that somehow, someday, he will control and enjoy his drinking is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker. Can you relate to that? Are you at a point in your life where you want to control and enjoy but find that you can't do either? So when I try to control my drinking, I'm not going to enjoy it. And the only way for me to enjoy my drinking is to not control it. Can you relate to that? See, another thing that we don't see in the book, and we hear talk about it, is this word denial. Right? That's not how they describe alcoholism. We describe alcoholism exactly for what it is. It's a form of insanity. So when we see words like delusion and illusion and obsession, this is what we need to understand. I'm not in denial about a damn thing. I'm actually insane regards to the first drink. Right? This is what alcoholism is all about. And this is because we talked about on page 23 when it tells us that therefore the main problem the alcoholic centers his mind rather than his body, right? This is my problem. The persistence of this illusion is astonishing. Many pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. So here's another thing. There's your two end results from the disease of alcoholism. Cage or coffin, my friends. And here is the instructions for step 1. And what it really is about is meeting the requirement of the principle behind the first step, which is honesty. Honesty with humility. And I'm going to read it here. We learned that we had to fully concede. And how do we get learned? Right? How are we taught? What we're talking about is my pain is what taught me. And here we go. We had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. The delusion that we are like other people or presently maybe has to be smashed. Right? This is what the first word, not the first word, but in the first step, the wording, we admitted. This is what we're talking about. This is what I have to do. This is the requirement I have to meet to be successful with step 1 and have that first step experience. Total and complete surrender to the fact that I am hopeless. We alcoholics are men and women who have lost the ability to control our drinking. We know that no real alcoholic ever covers control, right? What's outside the scope of that, my friends? The real alcoholic will never regain control. That simple, that black and white. All of us felt at times we were regaining control, but such intervals, usually brief, were inevitably followed by still less control, which led in time to pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. Can you relate to any of that? Do you have any of that experience of pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization? Right? That's what my drinking career looks like. That's what my whole life looked like. Listen to this. We are convinced. Remember, this is the we. It ain't me and you, my friends. They're talking about themselves. We are convinced to a man that alcoholics of our type, and again, what type? The real alcoholic, are in the grip of a progressive illness. Over any considerable period, we get worse, never better. So this idea that I'm going to run up and pat the newcomer on the head and say, oh, keep coming back, brother, and don't leave before the miracle happens, and oh, we'll just love you till you love yourself, and all that other crap that we hear in the meetings, is the reality of it is I'm supposed to be telling you that if you're the real alcoholic like me and like this book, the people in this book, it ain't going to get better. It's only going to get worse because you ain't going to figure it out. You ain't just going to turn around and walk away from this thing. It's progressive and it's fatal and it's non-negotiable. That's what we need to understand about the disease of alcoholism. See, the disease of alcoholism refuses to be ignored. It demands attention. I'm just going to keep reading verbatim, guys. That's what I'm inspired to do today. We are like men who have lost their legs. They never grow new ones. Neither does there appear to be any kind of treatment which will make alcoholics of our kind like other men. Again, what kind? The real kind. That's who we're talking about. Right? And within the first 51 pages, my friends, we see the third and third tradition just over and over and over. It's so intertwined when we understand what alcoholism and we understand about the unity. I'll keep reading. We have tried every imaginable remedy. In some instances, there's been brief recovery, followed by always a still worse relapse. Physicians who are familiar with alcoholism agree there's no such thing as making a normal drinker out of alcoholics. Science may one day accomplish this, but it hasn't done so yet. And guess what? It hasn't yet. Right? There ain't no magic pill. There ain't no pharmaceutical. There ain't nothing out there that's ever going to stop what alcoholism is. It just ain't going to happen. I don't give a shit what the treatment centers tell you. They're lying to you because there ain't no money in the cure. Keep coming back is a treatment phrase. They want you to keep coming back so they can take your money again. See, when the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is for fun and for free, and it's the most successful thing out there, period. Despite all we can say, many who are real alcoholics, are y'all all paying attention to the words as we study this book? Right? Are they jumping off the pages at you? When we see real alcoholic, true alcoholic over and over and over, they want us to know there's a difference. Despite all we can say, many who are real alcoholics are not going to believe that they're in this class. By every form of self-deception and experimentation, they will try to prove themselves exceptions to the rule, therefore non-alcoholic. Self-deception, that's about illusion and delusion and insanity. Not about denial. If anyone who's showing an ability to control his drinking can do the right about face and drink like a gentleman, our hats are off to him. And I say that as well, right? You can just pull yourself up from this mess and go on about your life. Congratulations. I'm happy for you. But you're not an alcoholic of my type. Heaven knows we have tried hard enough and long enough to drink like other people. So this next paragraph, guys, where it says here's some of the methods, this has been nicknamed the insanity test, right? And see, ask yourself, can you relate to any of these? Have you tried any of this, right? Because here's what we do with the real alcoholic, is that we're going to try to prove that we're not alcoholics by continuing to drink. That is the very definition of this is insanity, right? And I got to tell you, all of them, except for maybe natural wine, because I don't even know what the hell that is the only thing that doesn't fit into my life. So let's jump down to the bottom of the page on 31. It says, we do not like to pronounce any individual as an alcoholic. Nope, not my responsibility, not my role. My responsibility is to present the facts to you, the newcomer, and for you decide if you're the real alcoholic. What I'm going to try to do is ask you, does your life match up with the pages in this book? Right? Does your life look like the authors of this book? Because these guys are the real alcoholic. It says, but you can quickly diagnose yourself. Step over to the nearest bar room and try some controlled drinking. Try to drink and stop abruptly. Try it more than once. It will not take long for you to decide if you are honest with yourself about it. Maybe worth a bad case of the jitters if you get a full knowledge of your condition, right? This full knowledge of my condition is I need to be understanding, do I have the disease of alcoholism, right? Am I step one? That's what I need to be determining for myself, right? And I encourage the newcomer who's on the fence about this disease to go out and drink, right? It's good advice, and it comes directly from the program. There's another part of the book where they talk about another experiment, right? We have two experiments about going out and drinking. And we don't talk about them enough in the meeting. We need to hammer home. You need to know if you're one of us or not. So we're going to start on the man of 30, guys. It's on the middle of 32. I've also heard this story called the carpet slippers. And real quick, so they gave us 4 stories in this chapter. They gave us the man of 30, they gave us the jaywalker, they gave us a guy named Jim, and they gave us a guy named Fred, okay? Now, obviously the jaywalker is a fictitious story, but there's some very important information going on within these 3 other stories, right? Because what they wanted to do is they wanted to help us break the stereotype of what it means to be the real alcoholic, and also what we're talking about in the second part of the first step about this unmanageability of the mind. We hear this all the time in the room, is that I'm losing jobs, I'm going to jail, the wife's leaving me, I've got all these problems and chaos in my life. And that's what the unmanageability is about, and it's not. So the reason they gave us these 3 stories is to show us that my external conditions have absolutely nothing to do with alcoholism. And that the second part of the first step, the unmanageability, is nothing more than I cannot manage the decision not to drink. And we're going to smash home, and again, let the book be our voice through all of this, what we're really trying to get at. So I'm going to read about the man of 30, and we're going to pick out some very important words. So a man of 30 was doing a great deal of spree drinking. He was very nervous in the morning after these bouts and quieted himself with more liquor. Listen to this. Listen to how they describe this man. He's ambitious to succeed in business, but saw that he could get nowhere if he drank at all. Once he started, he had no control whatever. And why? That's because of the phenomenon of craving, right? The first part of the first step, the powerlessness. Listen to this. He made up his mind that until he had been successful in business and had retired, he would not touch another drop. An exceptional man. Doesn't sound anything unmanageable to me, does it? Sound like he's got his shit together. He remained bone dry for 25 years and retired at the age of 55 after a successful and happy business career. All right, let's just stop right there. Listen how they describe him. He's ambitious, he's successful, he's happy. Tell me, what's unmanageable about his life? Nothing. They also tell us that he didn't drink for 25 years. So obviously, just not drinking isn't the solution to alcoholism, is it? So just not drinking and just being dry ain't what I'm here to do, right? Because just not drinking for 25 years did not treat his disease one bit. So we're looking at how they're taking the stereotype of what it means to be the real alcoholic, and we're going to throw it out the window. We're also going to see how the unmanageability keeps repeating itself over and over and over within these 3 other stories that we're going to read. I'll keep reading. Then he fell victim to the belief, which practically every alcoholic has. Listen to this, that his long period of sobriety and self-discipline had qualified him to drink as other men. So listen to that. So they just said that long periods of sobriety and self-discipline ain't got a damn thing to do with the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is what they just told us. It ain't the solution. Out came his carpet slippers and a bottle. In 2 months, he was in a hospital, puzzled and humiliated. What happened to successful, ambitious, and happy? Now he's puzzled and humiliated. Listen to what he says. Listen to you hear the self-will in this. He tried to regulate his drinking for a while, making several trips to the hospital. Meantime, then gathering all of his forces, he attempted to stop altogether and found he could not. I love this next sentence. Every means of solving his problem, which money could buy, was at his disposal. What is unmanageable about his life? Nothing. Only the unmanageability in his mind. Listen to this. Every attempt failed. Though a robust man at retirement, he went to pieces quickly and was dead within 4 years. Right? This guy's got his shit together way more than I ever did. This case contains a powerful lesson. Most of us have believed that if we remain sober for a long stretch, we could thereafter drink normally. Again, sobriety ain't the solution to alcoholism. But here was a man who at 55 years found he was just where he'd left off at 30. If this ain't highlighted in your book, it needs to be right here. We have seen the truth demonstrated again and again. Not an opinion, but the truth. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. Commencing to drink after a period of sobriety, we are in short time as bad as ever. See, again, sobriety is not the solution. If we are planning to stop drinking, there must be no reservation of any kind, nor any lurking notion that someday we will be immune to alcohol. This is basic first step experience stuff right here. I have to completely smash the belief system that one day I'll be able to drink successfully. Have to. Let's keep on trucking, guys. Young people may be encouraged by this man's experience, again, not his opinion, to think that they can stop as he did on their own willpower. We doubt if many of them can do it because none of them really want to stop. Why? All right, let's turn that into a question. We doubt if many of them can do it because none of them really want to stop. Why would I not want to stop? See, because I don't want to stop when it's still working for me. Nobody does. See, because I have the disease of alcoholism, and alcohol treats my disease, and it's treating it well. Why would I give that up? I didn't. And hardly one of them because of the peculiar mental twist already acquired. This is the unmanageability of the mind that we're talking about. The second part of the step is the insanity, the obsession. Several of our crowd, men of 30 or less, have been drinking only a few years but found themselves as helpless as those who have been drinking 20 years. So again, this is going to break the stereotype of what a real alcoholic is, right? We all think that we have to be old and whatever, these old timers sitting around the room. That's what an alcoholic looks like. Not true at all. It was 30 or less. That means you're in your 20s. I know many people in recovery that got sober very early in age, right? Because alcoholism is timeless. To be gravely affected, one does not necessarily have to drink a long time nor take the quantity some of us have. Again, breaking the stereotype of what it means to be a real alcoholic. I hear this all the time. Well, I didn't drink every day. Or I didn't drink like this, and I didn't drink like that, and all these other things. And that has nothing to do with it. My program just tells me, right? I can be an alcoholic from the very first time I ever take a drink. Let's jump over to page 34, my friends. And the very first big paragraph says, as we look back, see that? As we look back, we feel we'd gone on drinking many years beyond the point where we could quit on our willpower. If anyone questions whether he has entered this dangerous area, let him try leaving the liquor alone for a year. If he's a real alcoholic and very far advanced, there's a scat chance of success, which means it ain't going to happen, is what it means, scat chance. In the early days of our drinking, we occasionally remained sober for a year or more, becoming serious drinkers again later. Right? Again, sobriety ain't the solution. Though we may be able to stop for a considerable period, you may yet be potential alcoholic. I love this next sentence, and we're going to talk about it. We think few to whom this book will appeal can stay dry anything like a year. Let's stop right there. So one of the things that I do when I sit down with a newcomer or anybody that asks me to take them through this work is one thing we do is you're going to have a brand new shiny book with nothing highlighted, nothing written in it, nothing to distract your eye, right? And I'm going to tell you to go home, and as we go through chapter by chapter, step by step, I'm going to ask you to read and highlight. And I'm going to ask you to read and highlight anything for any reason that jumps off the page at you, whether you relate to, you can identify with, you got questions, for it, whatever reason, I want you to highlight anything that resonates with you. So, and there's a main reason why we're doing this. Because when you come back to me and we sit down and I say, let me see your book, and I open it up, and let's just say we're in chapter 2, there's a solution. And you've got just highlight after highlight after highlight. What you're showing me in yourself is that you're identifying with this book, right? Which means this book is appealing to you, just like the sentence says. There's also when somebody comes back to me and I say, let me see your book, and I open it up to chapter 2 and there's a solution, and there is hardly anything highlighted. And I ask them, well, tell me what's going on. And I didn't really relate to any of this. Well, there's two things that could be behind that. Number one is you're not the real alcoholic, which is highly likely. And number two, you're not far advanced enough. And if you cannot get past those two, then we're not going to move on. So when it talks about, let me just read it again. We think few to whom this book will appeal, right? If this book is appealing to me, that means I'm relating to it. It's a great way to help someone see their truth within the pages of the big book. So let's look at this next sentence, right? Some will be drunk the day after making their resolutions, most of them within a year. Wow, and I hear just 1,000 times said in the rooms about we want to tell the newcomer, oh, you take all your time taking those steps, and don't get in no hurry with this, and we'll just keep coming back, brother. It works if you work it, and all that other crap. And the reality of it is see, this is the thing about alcoholism, and this is what it means about no human power, is that I can't predict or control when the mental obsession is going to get on you or myself. Right? So even though I've got the strongest desire in the world not to drink, and I make that firm resolution, it might last a day, it might last a week, it might last a month. I don't know. Right? And here's the thing. My next drink might kill you. Might kill your daughter. Might kill somebody else in your family. My next drink might kill me. My next drink might put me in prison for the rest of my life and destroy my family. So there needs to be this understanding of a sense of urgency with taking these steps, because you don't have time. I don't have time. Time is an illusion, right? Because my only defense is going to come from God. And the quicker I get hooked up to God, the better everybody will be. Does that make sense? So if you're the guy in the meeting telling the newcomer, just keep coming back and stop lying. You don't have the right to tell them that. For those of unable to drink moderately, the question is how to stop altogether. Well, there's your answer, H-O-W. I love this next sentence. We are assuming, of course, that the reader desires to stop. Oh my God. We have to stop assuming that everybody that walks into Alcoholics Anonymous even wants to be sober, has any desire to be there whatsoever. This is the most ridiculous assumption that we can take, is that the individual even desires. But it's my responsibility to find that out. I've talked about this so many times, and will continue to talk about it. About my role as a recovered member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and my responsibility to the program, and my responsibility to the traditions, is to take that newcomer and take them somewhere and sit them down and spend 45 minutes, an hour with them, getting to know them, explaining the program, asking them why you're here, asking them all the questions from page 92. Assuming. What a ridiculous thing for us to do as a society. If what I'm about to read now ain't highlighted in your book, it needs to be. Whether such a person can quit on a non-spiritual basis depends upon the extent to which he has already lost the power to choose whether he will drink or not. Lost the power of choice. We need to understand this. If you can wake up and go, I'm so-and-so and I choose not to drink, and you're successful with that, then you're not a real alcoholic. This is what we need to understand. This is truly about the second part of the first step, is that I have lost the power to choose whether I will drink or not. I am genetically programmed to commit alcoholic suicide, and there's nothing I can do about it. I am without the ability to manage the decision to not drink. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's crystal clear in our book. Many of us felt that we had plenty of character. There was a tremendous urge to cease forever. Yet we found it impossible. This next sentence, oh my God, when we went to tell people, just don't drink no matter what. God, what a pile of shit that is. Listen to what I'm about to read right here. This is the baffling feature of alcoholism as we know it. This utter inability to leave it alone, no matter how great the necessity or the wish. Impossible, utter impossibility for me to not drink. It says, how then shall we help our readers determine to their own satisfaction whether they are one of us? What are we? We're real alcoholics. And we need to stop assuming that everybody in the rooms is a real alcoholic. We're supposed to be helping them determine this, not assuming that they are. Oh, welcome, brother. You're in the right place. You're one of us. No, actually, the percentages are that you're not one of us and that you're not in the right place. Listen to this, guys. So we shall describe some of the mental states that precede a relapse into drinking. For obviously, that's the crux of the problem. Did you hear what I just said? The mental state that precedes a relapse. This is the unmanageability that we're talking about. The mental state is insanity. That's the state I'm in. And it precedes the relapse. So, quick side note, right? I've heard 100 people say, 1,000 people say that, I went back out and I drank again, I relapsed. I pick up a drink, I relapse. And I got to tell you, that's completely inaccurate. See, the relapse is over when we take a drink. So first thing that happens is that in order for me to relax and actually take a drink, is the first thing that's going to happen is that I'm going to lose my spiritual connection, right? If I lose my connection with God, that's going to open up for me the mental obsession to return. Once the mental obsession returns, I'm screwed because I can't outdo the mental obsession. Then I'm going to pick up a drink and then be back in active alcoholism. The relapse is over once we take a drink. This next paragraph is huge. What sort of thinking, not drinking, dominates an alcoholic who repeats time after time the desperate experiment of the first drink? Right? Repeats time after time. What is the definition of insanity? Repeating the same behaviors over and over, expecting different results. Friends who have reasoned with him after a spree which has brought him to the point of divorce or bankruptcy are mystified when he walks directly into a saloon. Why does he? There's a question mark right there, my friends. And the answer is because he's insane. It's because I'm insane. That's why I did that. And then it says, of what is his thinking? Again, not his drinking. So guys, now we're going to read the story of Jim, whose real name was Ralph F. And in the first edition, his story is another prodigal son. And again, I encourage everybody to go out and start learning and getting into the history of this thing and starting to learn about the early members and the co-authors of this book. Because we talk about Bill and Bob all the time, and that's great, but I got to tell you, there's people out there that have so much information to share with us and really get a window into what early Alcoholics Anonymous looked like. So I'm going to read about Jim here. So our first example is a friend we shall call Jim. This man listen to this. Listen how they describe Jim. Right? We're breaking the stereotype of alcoholism, and we're breaking this belief of what the unmanageability is truly about. Listen to what he says. He has a charming wife and family. He inherited a lucrative automobile agency, commendable war record. He is a good salesman. Everybody likes him. He is an intelligent man, normal so far as we can see. Listen to that. He is normal in every other way. Tell me what's unmanageable about his life. Right? Tell me what unmanageability applies to him. It doesn't. I'll keep reading. He did no drinking until he was 35. Again, so breaking the stereotype of I have to start drinking at an early age to be an alcoholic or this other stuff. No drinking until he was 35. Listen, in a few years, he became so violent when intoxicated, he had to be committed. On leaving the asylum, he came into contact with us, right? he's only drinking a couple years and he's in full-blown alcoholism. We told him what we knew of alcoholism and the answer we had found. Listen to this. He made a beginning. His family was reassembled, and he began to work as a salesman for the business he had lost through drinking. All went well for a time, but he failed to enlarge his spiritual life. To his consternation, which means his dismay, he found himself drunk half a dozen times in rapid succession. On each of these occasions, we worked with him, reviewing carefully what happened. Listen to this. He says he agreed he was a real alcoholic and in serious condition. He knew he faced another trip to the asylum if he kept on. Moreover, he would lose his family for whom he had a deep affection. So hear what he just said. He knows. He knows that they're going to lock his ass up if he takes another drink. He knows that his wife's going to pack up the kids and go. He knows this. Turn the page. Yet he got drunk again. So why? Why did he get drunk again? Well, page 34 explains this perfectly. This is the baffling feature of alcoholism as we know it. This utter inability to leave it alone, no matter how great the necessity or the wish. So he's just talking about the necessity and the wish. He doesn't want to lose his freedom. He doesn't want to lose his family. But he is powerless to stop it. We asked him to tell us exactly how it happened. This is his story. I came to work on Tuesday morning. I remember I felt irritated. Oh, so it sounds like Jim's got a little self-pity or resentment going on, doesn't he? That I had been a salesman for a concern I'd once owned. I have few words with the boss, but nothing serious. So he's really downplaying what happened. Then I decided to drive in the country, see some of my prospects for a car. On the way, I felt hungry, so I stopped at a roadside place where they have a bar. Listen to what he says. I have no intention of drinking. I just thought I would get a sandwich. I also had the notion that I might find a customer for a car at this place, which was familiar, for I had been going to it for years. I had eaten there many times during the months. I was sober. I sat down at the table and ordered a sandwich and a glass of milk. Still no thought of drinking. I ordered another sandwich and decided to have another glass of milk. And listen to what he says. And now we're getting into quotations. Suddenly, boom. That's what that word is about. Suddenly. The mental obsession hits him. The insanity of alcoholism has returned in this moment. And listen what he tells us. The thought crossed my mind that if I were to put an ounce of whiskey in my milk, it couldn't hurt me on a full stomach. I ordered a whiskey and I poured it into milk. I vaguely sensed I was not being any too smart, but felt reassured I was taking the whiskey on a full stomach. The experiment went so well that I ordered another whiskey and poured it into more milk. That didn't seem to bother me, so I tried another. So it's too late now. Now he's activated the physical allergy, the phenomenon of cravings taken over, and now he's screwed. He's off to the races. Listen to what it says. Thus started one more journey to the asylum for Jim. Here was the threat of commitment, his very freedom, the loss of his family and position, to say nothing of the intense mental and physical suffering which drinking always caused him. He had much knowledge of himself as an alcoholic, yet all reasons for not drinking were easily pushed aside in favor for the foolish idea that he could take whiskey if he only mixed it with milk. This goes back to 34. The baffling feature of alcoholism as we know it. There is no threat great enough to keep me sober. There is no promise great enough to keep me sober. No human power will relieve alcoholism, my friends. Let's finish up here. And we're going to see the word insanity in a couple variations of it about 6 or 7 times on this page. Because again, this is what the second part of the first step is about. The unmanageability, the insanity of the mind. Whatever the precise definition of the word may be, we call it plain insanity. How can such a lack of proportion of the ability to think straight be called anything else? There's a question mark there, guys. Can you answer it? It can't. The answer is it can't. It's insanity. Is this what your life looked like? I know mine sure as hell did. You may think this is an extreme case. To us, it is not far-fetched for this kind of thinking, again, not type of drinking, this type of thinking, has been characteristic of every single one of us. We have sometimes reflected more than Jim did upon the consequences, but there was always the curious mental phenomenon, again, unmanageability of the mind, that parallel with our sound reasoning, or lack of it, there inevitably ran some insanely trivial excuse for taking the first drink. Our sound reasoning failed to hold us in check. Without a power to manage the decision to not drink. My sound reasoning cannot hold me in check because I am insane. The insane idea won out. Next day, we'd ask ourselves in all earnestness and sincerity, how could it happen? Oh my God, I did that for 28 years. How did this happen again? In some circumstances, we have gone out deliberately to get drunk, feeling ourselves justified by nervousness, anger, worry, depression, jealousy, or the like. But even in this type of beginning, we are obliged to admit that our justification for a spree was insanely insufficient in the light of what always happened. We now see that when we begin to drink deliberately, instead of casually, there's little serious effective thought during the period of premeditation of what the terrific consequences may be. All right, guys, and we're going to stop there. And we'll be picking up part 2 on the bottom of this page, 37, with the Jaywalker story, and then getting into Fred and closing out the chapter. You know, another thing that I've heard in the rooms 1,000 times is think the drink through, or think it through its conclusion. And I'm telling you, if you're the real alcoholic like me, you're the real alcoholic that they're talking about in this book, you are without the ability to do that. That is the problem. You know, we talk about strange mental blank spots and cunning and baffling and powerful. This is the problem. I'm insane. So guys, if you haven't had an opportunity already, please like, subscribe, and share. I'm going to drop my email again in here. It's recoveredalcoholic1939@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. Offer my hand in sponsorship to men and women. And we'll go from page 164. May God bless you and keep you until then. So take care and much love.